Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Folks, there's something very interesting going on. President Biden and the White House is building a coalition of business leaders surrounding the stimulus talks. Now, folks, in this video, I'll give you three reasons why I think President Biden is building this coalition of business leaders to push for further stimulus. Let's start with this headline on your screen that was published on CNBC, and the headline reads, White House builds business coalition to support Biden's COVID relief plan. Now, folks, if you might recall, I mentioned this yesterday because yesterday the President Biden, the Vice President Kamala Harris, and the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen actually met with the CEOs of JP Morgan Chase, the CEOs of Walmart, amongst others, yesterday. Since then, guess what? There have been more meetings. New reporting shows that the administration has also met with and engaged with different companies, including American Airlines, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, Ernst & Young, the National Association of Manufacturers, General Motors, and the Black Economic Alliance. Now, it's really interesting that the Biden administration is meeting with so many leaders, with so many different industries in an effort to get support for the $1.9 trillion stimulus package. So what have they been discussing? They've been asking for feedback about the $1,400 stimulus checks. They've been asking for feedback about unemployment benefits. And they've been talking to these companies, asking for the companies' feedback about increasing the minimum wage up to $15 an hour. So it's very clear that the administration is seeking some sort of feedback because it's quite likely that a lot of these business leaders and CEOs have good ideas because they experienced running highly profitable, highly successful American conglomerates. So it's likely that the government's like, hey, let me just get some good ideas. But folks, the more I started thinking about this, the more I realized that there has to be more to the story than that. I started looking for specific details. I started digging for specific details about what they actually discussed with these CEOs and what the CEOs actually said. I thought to myself, surely there has to be a CEO who's not happy about the $15 an hour minimum wage because that's going to lead to an increase in their expenses and a reduction in their profitability. So as I dug deeper, I was actually able to find some information. So therefore, it's not surprising that different CEOs are opposed to different aspects of the Biden plan, most notably the $15 an hour minimum wage. So the departing U.S. Chamber of Commerce CEO, he's outgoing, his name's Tom Donahue, he did meet with President Biden on Tuesday this week, and he was opposed to the $15 an hour minimum wage. One of the things that Donahue said was states have raised minimum wages, and the one thing that is very clear is that the cost of living and the economy in different states are clearly different. What he's trying to say is someone, let's say, working in Alabama or Arkansas, is essentially going to need less to get by than someone working in New York and California. But I have to tell you, this does open up a can of worms because just because someone lives in a different state doesn't mean they should have a higher wage. This would potentially create a whole range of new problems, which I haven't heard anybody really address in a meaningful and substantive way. And while all this is happening, while the Biden team is trying to get as much support as possible amongst business CEOs, and I'll jump into the three reasons why I think they're doing this. And by the way, this is not something you're going to get on normal news outlets. So if you learn something new, please click like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. While they're trying to get this business coalition going with CEOs, it's very clear that small business owners support this plan, support the massive $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. On your screen, you see a headline from CNBC that reads, Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus plan has support from 63% of small business owners. So folks, according to a brand new survey, 63% of business owners support the plan, including 46% of Republican business owners. So there does seem to be bipartisan support for this large stimulus plan. And so folks, I had promised that I would dig into the three reasons why I think the Biden team is doing this. Let's just jump right in. Number one, fundraising from donors. Guess what? Big companies have money. What do politicians need for fundraising, for campaigning? Not just for President Biden's re-election, that's a long time away, but specifically for the Democrats to retain control of the Senate, for the Democrats to retain control of the House. What do they need? They need money. They need it to be raining money so that they have enough money to be able to win and continue winning and retain control of the House and the Senate. And if they can do this with their buddies who donate to them, a lot of the priorities, a lot of the lobbyists that exist in Washington will then have more influence because they help their officials get re-elected. This is an official version, a legal version of quid pro quo. In fact, here's something that's astonishing. Hundreds of millions of dollars, well over $700 million were spent in the Georgia Senate runoff races, which determine control of the US Senate. So there's Jon Ossoff, the 33-year-old senator from Georgia, and there's Reverend Raphael Warnock from Georgia. Their race had over $700 million spent on it. Now, if you thought that was a lot of money, guess what? President Biden's campaign was the first campaign in the history of the United States of America to fundraise over $1 billion. Here's a headline on your screen from OpenSecrets.org. Biden campaign becomes the first campaign to raise $1 billion from donors. So folks, just to give you an idea, let's show you this chart on your screen from this article. By the way, you'll get a link to the article in the description section below. Presidential Campaign Committee fundraising. You'll see that excluding self-funders, Joe Biden's 2020 campaign is the first ever to raise $1 billion, blowing past previous fundraising efforts. So you can see that President Biden's campaign raised more money than former President Trump's campaign. Former President Trump's campaign raised more money than former President Barack Obama's campaign. And former President Barack Obama's campaign raised more money than Hillary Clinton's campaign. It's almost like it's raining money. And by the way, this money does come from small donations, but a significant portion of the money comes from large lobbyists who donate hundreds of millions of dollars with special interests in mind. So what are special interest groups? Special interest groups are groups that are essentially representative of large industries that want to grow with the support of the administration. In this case, let's take the marijuana industry, for example. Let's take the green energy industry. Let's take electric vehicles, for example. Now, two industries that are huge industries are banks and just let's keep this broad, big employers, banks and big employers. One of the biggest banks in the country is JP Morgan Chase Bank, and the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, met with the president in the past 48 hours. The largest employer in the country is Walmart. One of the top guys from Walmart, Doug McMillon, met with President Biden in the past 48 hours. So you can see that there's a clear link between special interest groups and fundraising and donors as far as the administration is concerned, not just the Biden administration, but for that matter, any administration. So that's the first reason, folks. Fundraising for donors is one of the reasons why the White House is using this business coalition, not just to talk about stimulus, but also to develop a more cozy relationship with these special interest groups going forward. Now, the second is pretty simple, and I did mention this earlier, good ideas. A lot of these CEOs have good ideas. They're intelligent people. They run big companies. They run tight ships. And they probably can teach the government of the United States how to do things without waste, how to do things without bloat, because fundamentally they run large organizations. And in many, many ways, the United States of America, the government is like a large organization with a lot of erstwhile employees. So that was the second reason. Now let's jump into the third reason why I think President Biden is building a business coalition. Folks, plain and simple, political pressure. Yes, if President Biden can get these CEOs on board, a lot of these CEOs donate not just to the Democrats, but also to the Republicans. If these CEOs can get on the side of the Democrats, then the Democrats can use these CEOs to put pressure on the Republicans and say, hey, you need to support this if you want me to be on your side. And the Republicans are also driven, by the way, by the same things that the Democrats are driven by. The Republicans are also driven by fundraising from donors. They're driven by good ideas. And they are driven by trying to create political pressure on, you guessed it, the Democrats. So if the Democrats can essentially cozy up with these CEOs and get them to put pressure on the Republicans, and the Republicans can, for a change, get along with the Democrats to try and get the $1.9 trillion stimulus package done. So this is it, everyone. 3 reasons why I think President Biden is building a business coalition for the $1.9 trillion stimulus package: fundraising from donors, getting good ideas, and putting political pressure on the opponents, in this case the Republicans. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications. That would mean a lot to me personally. I really appreciate you watching. It helps out the YouTube algorithm if you subscribe and enable notifications. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.